When I look back on my life, the triumphs, the crashes, the chaos, I realize that what most people call intelligence had very little to do with success. It was not brilliance alone that preserved my fortune, but survival, perception, and discipline. People think billionaires are geniuses with perfect foresight, but the truth is far simpler. The wealthy think differently about risk, uncertainty, and reality. They embrace truths that most people avoid. The first lesson I learned about money was that the crowd is almost always wrong, not because people are stupid, but because they need to believe in something. They crave certainty the way a drowning man craves air. Markets thrive on belief, and they punish certainty. I began trading at a time when I had no power, no influence, no reputation, only curiosity and a willingness to learn. I studied patterns of human behavior more than prices themselves. I realized that every boom begins with belief, and every crash begins when that belief turns to fear. The herd moves in circles, chasing illusion and fleeing it, and my fortune was built on understanding that cycle better than most. Over decades, I developed a set of principles, 10 rules that guided my decisions, helped me navigate uncertainty, and preserved my wealth through countless crises. These rules are not theories, they are lessons learned through observation, risk, and reflection. And they are not commonly shared because they require the courage to act when others hesitate and the discipline to doubt when others blindly follow. Rule Heshon, question everything. Doubt saved me more often than brilliance ever did. When everyone else is confident, I become suspicious. When the market is euphoric, I look for cracks in the foundation. Markets are not reflections of reality. They are mirrors of perception. Prices move because people believe they should, and this belief often feeds on itself. I call this reflexivity perception and reality influence each other in constant feedback. When everyone believes something, it becomes true until it isn't. That's when crashes happen. Early in my career, I assumed that prices reflected truth. I lost heavily. Then I realized markets are not mirrors, they are paintings, colored by emotion and speculation. Once I understood this, everything changed. The greatest fortunes are made by those who question the obvious. When the world says, this is safe, you ask, what if it isn't? Questioning doesn't make you cynical, it makes you aware. Awareness is the first step toward power. Rule #2, embrace being wrong. Most people cannot handle being wrong. Their ego refuses. That's why they fail. I've lost millions on trades, sometimes in a single day. The secret is that I never tried to be right all the time. I only tried to avoid being wrong for too long. Ego destroys wealth faster than any crash ever could. When you are wrong, admit it immediately. Adjust, reverse, protect your capital. There is no shame in being wrong. There is only shame in refusing to see it. Each mistake became tuition, expensive, yes, but invaluable. Mistakes taught me lessons no book could. If you want to grow wealthy, learn to love your errors. Study them. They are honest teachers. Rule #3, control risk, not outcomes. People chase profits. Billionaires manage risk. That is the difference. You cannot control the future. You cannot force a market to move in your favor. But you can always control how much it costs you to be wrong. When I enter a trade, I think first about how much I am willing to lose. If the risk does not justify the reward, I walk away. Most people do the opposite. They dream about upside and ignore downside. That is why they are wiped out. In 1992, when I bet against the British pound, it was not a gamble, it was a calculation. The system was unsustainable. The risk-reward ratio was asymmetric, huge potential reward, limited risk. That is structure, not luck. The market rewards those who think in probabilities, not fantasies. If you manage risk with discipline, profit becomes inevitable over time.
Rule hash 4, bet big. When reality breaks, rare moments arrive when truth and illusion separate. When the world insists that something is real, yet your perception sees otherwise. Those moments define careers.
Most hesitate, waiting for confirmation, safety, or permission. Opportunity never knocks softly, it appears as contradiction. When I saw the British pound could not sustain its peg to the Deutsche Mark, I acted decisively. Many considered it reckless. Few understood the logic. When the market corrected, the results were dramatic. It was not arrogance, it was alignment. Data, psychology, history all pointed in one direction. When reality diverges from illusion, the bold act decisively while the fearful freeze. You do not need to be right often. You need to be right big once in a while. And you must have the courage to act when the world says you are insane. Rule hash 5 wealth is built on asymmetry. You can be wrong 9 times out of 10 and still become rich if your one right decision is asymmetric enough. That is the secret no billionaire will tell you. It is not how often you win, but how big you win when it matters. In every trade, I ask, what is my downside versus my upside?
Risk $1 to make $10, and you don't need to win often. Survive long enough for odds to swing in your favor, and fortune accumulates. The average investor dreams of small, consistent returns.
I dream of opportunities where risk and reward are in balance, where one move can change everything. Never risk everything for something small. Never play a game where losing means death. And never underestimate how fast fortunes can shift. The secret of asymmetry is simple: lose small, win big, repeat. Rule hash 6, stay emotionally liquid. The greatest danger isn't losing money, it's losing your flexibility. Markets are relentless and attachment is deadly. If you fall in love with a position, an idea, or even your own reputation, you are no longer free. You become a prisoner of your own narrative. Liquidity is not just cash. Emotional liquidity, the ability to adapt, to move, to pivot, without resistance, is even more important. Markets do not care about your feelings, your plans, or your pride. When reality shifts, you must shift instantly. I remind myself constantly, be fluid, not fixed. Water flows around obstacles. It does not fight, it adapts. That mindset allowed me to survive decades of chaos. Emotional liquidity is the art of detachment. You can care deeply about your vision, but never tie your identity to a single outcome. The calmest mind wins in the storm. Rule hash 7, doubt is the highest form of intelligence. People confuse intelligence with certainty. The loudest, most confident voices are often wrong. The real measure of intelligence is how much doubt you can hold without breaking. Throughout my life, I doubted everything, my trades, my ideas, even my own beliefs. That doubt did not paralyze me. It guided me. Doubt is not weakness, it is awareness. It is the ability to remain awake while others sleep in ignorance. The average mind seeks comfort in answers. The disciplined mind finds freedom in questions. When you doubt properly, you do not freeze. You observe, you test, you adjust. Markets evolve, reality shifts. The only constant is uncertainty. Believers follow conviction into disaster. Billionaires doubt conviction until only truth remains. Rule hash 8, study history, not just numbers. I have spent decades studying market data, trends, and probabilities. But the numbers alone never reveal the full picture, the patterns of human behavior, the psychology of crowds, and the lessons of history are far more instructive. History repeats, not because people are predictable, but because people are human. Fear, greed, hope, and panic remain constant across generations. A trader who ignores history is blind to the cycles of behavior that shape markets. I recall studying the collapse of currencies in the 20th century, the mistakes of governments, the overconfidence of banks, the panicked retreats of investors. The lessons were clear. When the crowd repeats its errors, opportunity emerges. Recognizing historical patterns allowed me to anticipate crises before they became obvious to everyone else. Rule #9. Avoid the illusion of control. Many investors and leaders delude themselves into believing they control outcomes. They mistake influence for mastery. Reality is far more complex. I have learned that no trade, no plan, no analysis can guarantee a specific result. The world is too chaotic, too unpredictable, too reflexive. Your goal is not control. Your goal is preparation. To understand probabilities, manage risk, and position yourself to survive and thrive regardless of the outcome. When I entered trades, I never sought certainty. I sought alignment with reality. My ego did not demand that I be right. My discipline required that I remain flexible, observant, and responsive. That distinction separates the cautious from the reckless, the transient wealthy from those who endure.
Rule #0, wealth, is a responsibility, not just power. Finally understand that wealth carries consequences beyond markets. Money allows influence, but it also magnifies errors.
Every decision you make as a billionaire affects countless others. That is both privilege and burden. I do not measure my life by profits alone. I measure it by the clarity with which I see the world, the courage to act decisively, and the integrity to acknowledge consequences. Wealth is not the end. It is the tool to shape impact for better or worse. Decisions in markets are microcosms of life itself. The lessons of humility, discipline, and awareness apply far beyond finance. To accumulate wealth responsibly, you must be vigilant, reflective, and morally conscious. Survival and ethics often intersect in subtle ways. When I reflect on my career, the most vivid lessons are rarely found in textbooks or financial charts. They are in moments of tension, when markets are unstable and human behavior is raw and exposed. Those moments reveal truths that shape not just wealth, but character. I remember early in my career the panic surrounding a small European currency. Everyone was certain it would stabilize. They dismissed warning signs. I watched the markets, listened to conversations, and noticed subtle signals, the hesitation in banking communications, the odd behavior of cross-border transactions. These were minor details, invisible to most, but they spoke volumes to someone paying attention. I acted carefully, maintaining flexibility, and when the collapse came, I was prepared. This is why emotional liquidity matters. Many investors, no matter how brilliant, lost everything because they clung to positions, ideas, or reputations. Fear and pride make people immobile.
Water flows around obstacles. A successful investor must do the same: pivot, adapt, and remain mentally fluid. Doubt often appears uncomfortable. People seek certainty, and doubt can feel like weakness.
But I learned early that doubt is not paralysis, it is a tool. I recall a trade I almost took in the late 1970 seconds. The numbers suggested a strong opportunity, but something in the broader economic signals gave me pause. The market sentiment was overwhelmingly bullish, yet subtle indicators contradicted the prevailing narrative. I hesitated. I watched. I observed. Others rushed in, confident, exuberant, and reckless. Weeks later, the market corrected violently. My doubt protected me. That single moment taught me that holding uncertainty rather than acting on blind confidence is one of the most powerful strategies for survival. Few investors truly understand asymmetry, the concept that one correct decision can outweigh numerous small errors. I once examined an emerging market currency. The potential gain was extraordinary, but the risk was contained and measurable. Most people saw only the danger. I saw the imbalance of risk versus reward. I allocated a position carefully, monitoring and adjusting as conditions evolved. The reward was massive, exceeding anything I could have earned through countless smaller trades. Markets are cyclical, yet many fail to recognize this because they are seduced by short-term narratives. Boom and bust, optimism and fear, greed and panic, these cycles repeat because human behavior does not change even when external circumstances do. Understanding these cycles is critical. Risk is not a concept to be ignored. It is not an obstacle to overcome with confidence or intuition alone. It is a measurable, manageable variable. Controlling risk rather than obsessing over outcomes is the foundation of survival. Markets are fluid, and so must be your approach. Flexibility is not indecision, it is adaptability. You must be willing to pivot when evidence contradicts your beliefs, even if it challenges your ego. During the Asian financial crisis in the late 1990 seconds, I observed patterns similar to earlier collapses. Governments over-leveraged, investors were overconfident, and markets were euphoric despite underlying fragility. Many missed the warning signs. By remaining flexible and observing both numerical indicators and behavioral patterns, I could adjust positions in time to limit exposure. When the crisis hit, those who failed to anticipate behavioral extremes suffered massive losses. Flexibility, observation, and disciplined risk management were the keys to surviving and profiting. Markets are uncertain by nature. You cannot predict every outcome. Success comes from disciplined decision-making under uncertainty. I approach trades probabilistically. Every position carries a range of potential outcomes, and I evaluate the likelihood and magnitude of each. By focusing on asymmetry, where potential reward far exceeds potential loss, I maximize the chances of significant success while minimizing catastrophic exposure. True wealth is built over decades, not days. Short-term thinking leads to mistakes, overtrading, and emotional decisions. I have always emphasized the long-term perspective, focusing on principles rather than immediate results. Wealth brings influence, and influence carries responsibility. Every decision has consequences that ripple beyond personal gain. I have always approached markets not solely for profit, but with an understanding of the broader context. The greatest investors recognize that responsibility accompanies power. Ignoring this principle can amplify risk, both financially and morally. Markets are not just numbers and charts, they are the product of human psychology. Understanding the emotional currents that drive decisions is more important than knowing the fundamentals alone. Fear, greed, and hope dictate behavior far more than logic. Early in my career, I observed traders reacting irrationally to seemingly minor events. A single rumor could trigger panic. Overconfidence could inflate bubbles. By studying these behaviors, I learned to anticipate market overreactions and position myself accordingly. The psychological edge comes from observing what others ignore, seeing patterns in chaos, and acting when emotion overwhelms reason. Preparation is more than strategy, it is mindset. Opportunities are unpredictable, and the best moments often arise suddenly. Success requires readiness, mental, financial, and emotional. In one notable trade, a European currency's peg to a stronger currency was under stress. Everyone assumed stability, yet subtle indicators suggested vulnerability. Capital flight, rising interest rates, and inconsistent government messaging. I positioned myself carefully, controlling risk while maximizing potential reward. When the peg collapsed, I benefited enormously. The lesson was clear. Success comes from recognizing divergence between belief and reality and acting with discipline. Timing, observation, and flexibility are critical. Intuition is often misunderstood. It is not mystical insight. It is the product of experience, observation, and pattern recognition. Over decades, I developed an intuitive sense of when markets were mispricing risk or opportunity. Intuition alone is insufficient. It must be tempered by analysis, risk management, and patience. The investor who relies purely on instinct is likely to fail. But when combined with disciplined observation and preparation, intuition becomes a powerful tool for navigating uncertainty. Every loss contains a lesson. Early failures were painful, yet they were the foundation of my approach. I studied mistakes carefully, identifying where judgment failed, where assumptions misled, and where risk was underestimated. Losses teach humility, discipline, and resilience. They force you to confront reality, refine strategies, and cultivate patience. Without learning from failure, success is fleeting.
The most valuable lessons often come from the moments we wish had never occurred. Markets can appear chaotic, but perspective reveals pattern.
A single trade rarely defines a career. Patterns of behavior over time determine outcomes. I focus on probabilities, risk-reward, asymmetry, and long-term consistency rather than short-term results. Perspective also tempers emotion. Success can inflate ego, and failure can induce panic. Maintaining a clear view of the bigger picture prevents both. It allows for decisions rooted in reality rather than impulse. To succeed at the highest levels, one must often think differently than the majority. When the crowd is euphoric, that is often the time to question and observe. When panic spreads, opportunity emerges. Contrarian thinking is not rebellion for its own sake. It is disciplined awareness. It requires patience, observation, and courage. Most people are too attached to consensus to act independently. Those who think differently, guided by principle and evidence, gain a strategic advantage. Markets are complex systems influenced by countless factors: economic, political, social, and psychological. Attempting to control or predict every variable is futile. Success comes from understanding complexity without being paralyzed by it. I approach complexity by focusing on key signals, observing patterns, and controlling risk. I do not attempt to forecast every outcome. Instead, I structure positions so that the most favorable scenarios yield disproportionate rewards while minimizing exposure to catastrophic losses. This approach allows one to navigate complexity without being overwhelmed. Patience is not passive. It is the disciplined ability to wait for favorable conditions. Action is not impulsive. It is decisive and aligned with probabilities. The balance of patience and action defines success. Many investors act too early, chasing gains or succumbing to fear. Others wait too long, missing opportunities entirely. The key is readiness. Observe, assess, and act decisively when the alignment is right. This is where preparation, experience, and emotional control converge. Time is the ultimate teacher. Over decades, I have witnessed repeated patterns of human behavior: fear, greed, overconfidence, panic. Markets change superficially, but human nature remains constant. Recognizing this has been my greatest advantage. Adaptation is essential for survival and success. The world is dynamic, unpredictable, and often irrational. Those who cling rigidly to ideas, strategies, or expectations are eventually overwhelmed. Flexibility allows you to adjust to new information, new risks, and new opportunities. I have continually refined my strategies based on evolving markets and changing circumstances. The ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn has been as valuable as any single trade. Adaptation is not weakness, it is intelligence in motion. Wealth carries responsibility. Decisions in markets influence broader systems, economies, and societies. Every action has consequences beyond personal gain. Ethical awareness ensures that influence is exercised with consideration and restraint. I have always approached markets not solely for profit, but with an understanding of the broader context. The greatest investors recognize that responsibility accompanies power. Ignoring this principle can amplify risk both financially and morally. Markets, economies, and societies are constantly evolving. Complacency is the enemy of longevity. Lifelong learning through observation, reading, analysis, and reflection is essential. I remain a student of markets, history, and human behavior. Even after decades of experience, there is always more to understand. Every crisis, every trend, every unexpected event is an opportunity to learn and adapt. Curiosity, humility, and disciplined inquiry are the foundations of enduring success. People often attribute success to luck. Luck plays a role, but preparation transforms chance into opportunity. I have benefited from circumstances beyond my control, but only because I was ready to act. Others missed the same opportunities due to fear, hesitation, or lack of preparation. Luck is amplified by readiness. It is not a substitute for strategy. Reflection is not passive. It is deliberate, rigorous, and often uncomfortable. By reviewing decisions, outcomes, and strategies, you refine judgment and strengthen resilience. I spend time reflecting on each trade, each decision, and each failure. What assumptions were correct? What did I overlook? Where did emotion influence action? Reflection ensures that lessons are internalized and mistakes are not repeated. Throughout my career, I have emphasized asymmetry, taking small, controlled risks to capture large potential rewards. Opportunities are not always obvious, and they rarely present themselves without risk. The key is to structure decisions so that the upside far outweighs the downside. Asymmetry allows survival and long-term growth, even in the face of repeated minor setbacks. Doubt is not a weakness. It is the highest form of intelligence. Awareness allows you to navigate uncertainty, anticipate change, and act decisively. Those who cling to certainty are often blindsided when reality diverges from expectation. Awareness combined with humility, patience, and disciplined risk management creates the foundation for enduring success. Wealth is not simply about making money, it is about understanding the dynamics of human behavior, markets, and opportunity. These 10 rules question everything. Embrace being wrong. Control risk. Bet big when reality diverges from belief. Seek asymmetry. Stay emotionally liquid. Doubt constantly. Study history. Avoid the illusion of control. And treat wealth as responsibility are the principles that guided me through decades of uncertainty. They are not theoretical. They are lived. They are the result of observing patterns, learning from mistakes, and acting decisively when opportunity emerges. For anyone seeking to understand markets, human behavior, or the nature of wealth, these lessons provide a framework. They are not guarantees of success, but they are tools for navigating complexity and uncertainty with intelligence, discipline, and courage.
If you found these 10 rules valuable, subscribe and turn on notifications. Watch the next video to discover more lessons from the lives of the world's most successful investors and learn how to think differently about wealth, risk, and opportunity.